You try it. Same situation. All right. Here is the house. Here's the window. I'm the burglar. I'm coming out of the house, over the hedge. I've got the stolen stereo in my hand.
Stop that stereo before I blow your goddamn nuts off, asshole!
Tackleberry, we really need to talk.
Hey, Andrew, before we start this podcast, I have to ask you one thing.
Sure.
Do you and your wife do it doggy style? What's up, dirtbags? Welcome to Sleazebag Cinema. I'm Mike Jamison, and with me is my co-host, Andrew Gross. Andrew, are you going to answer, or are you just going to laugh? What's going on?
I'm just going to laugh.
Okay, I was making sure. As I said, welcome to Sleazebag Cinema, and tonight we are covering the seminal 1984 movie.
84, Christ.
1984. Came out actually before Bachelor Party. The seminal 1984 movie, Police Academy.
84 is a good year for our Sleazebag Cinema collection, for sure.
It was, and I was like 9 when this came out, and I probably saw it. I didn't see it in the movie theaters, but I saw it. I wasn't 9. I had to be probably 10, because I probably saw it in 85. This is another one of those, as I call them, Prism movies that I would watch on Prism at my aunt's house, who lived 2 doors away from me when I was a wee lad in Southwest Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and
Steve, go ahead, keep going.
No, I was going to say, and she had it because, you know, we like to watch Flyers games, and we also discovered on Prism that you could see women's bare breasts in some of these movies. Year-old, that was very interesting. Yes, this was a movie that I grew up on. Although I will say, before we even start, as I was watching the movie, I could tell that I was mixing up like Police Academy 1, 2, and 3 together, because there were some parts.
How could you?
Well, I kind of knew that like Bobcat Goldthwait wasn't in this one, but I thought Tim Kazurinsky was in this one. He is introduced in the second one. Sweet Chuck is introduced in the second one. There's also, what else did I
Tim
get?
Kazurinsky, he was in Ghostbusters too, wasn't he?
No, Rick Moranis. Tim
Rick Moranis,
Kazurinsky was on Saturday Night Live. He's like the low rent. Tim Kazurinsky is like discount Rick Moranis. If you can't get Rick Moranis, you're going to get Tim Kazurinsky.
Tim Kazurinsky, okay, gotcha.
Like because in this one they have the husband, you know, the nerdy husband who's accident prone.
Oh,
Tim Kazurinsky. I always confuse him and Tim Kazurinsky. But Tim Kazurinsky, I believe, when you go on Wikipedia, because I went on Wikipedia, you know, to a deep dive while I was at work to study up.
How was it work?
Yes, to study up on the Police Academy franchise. And we will talk about that, because this is definitely an 80s franchise, because it started out as an R-rated movie and ended as an animated cartoon. But yeah, so when you go on like Police Academy's Wikipedia page, there's just like all the people who starred in like all the various movies and which movies they starred in. Some left, some came back. G.W. Bailey was in the first one, but then he didn't come back until the fourth.
That's Rizzo, yeah?
Yep. Rizzo from MASH, yes.
Yep.
Guttenberg was in like the first 4, I believe, but then
really
got too big for his britches. Well, they did them back to back to back. Like the first 3 came out 3 years in a row.
I didn't know he did 4. I thought he just did the 2. And I know, and then you told me the other day he came back for one of the.
I may be incorrect.
How many are there?
I know he at least did 3, but I think he did 4, but I know he at least did 3. There are 1, 2, 3. I think there's 7 of them. They actually wanted it to get to 10, but they only got to 7.
And then, I'm gonna have to. I have to admit to the audience here, I've only seen the first one, so I have to do my due diligence. I mean, I got to get to the one where they go to Russia.
I don't know if I ever actually really saw. I can remember seeing commercials for it, but I don't think I ever actually saw. When you bring back Bachelor Party, and you will bring back Bachelor Party. When you bring back Bachelor Party to me, I'll lend you Police Academy 2, because I have 1 and 2 on DVD, and it's like I must have bought them. I watched the documentary on the first one, and it's like the 20th anniversary, so that's 2004. I must have probably bought them because they're like the old clamshell type of DVD cover, not even covers, but DVD, you know, not cartridges, but you know what I'm talking about, like DVD containers that you would like pop open. So yeah. But I have 1 and 2. But I was definitely getting 1 and 2. Like I remember Harris, G.W. Bailey's character, always screaming for Proctor. But that's like I don't think that's like until the 3rd or 4th one. So I'm sitting here watching and I'm like, wait a minute, when does Proctor show up? I mean, there's the mainstays of the, and you know what? We're going to reverse. Welcome to Sleazebag Cinema. We are. I'm Nick. This is Andrew. We are covering Police Academy, the 1984 original Police Academy. But yeah, there are, of course, like tropes that come up in the whole series, like the Blue Oyster Bar.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else. the, the the homosexual fear of most of the male characters, which really rears its head in this first one. The first one was the only one that was rated R. So this
Is
was
that
the only
right?
one that was rated R. Yes. So
Okay.
they kind of like after this, and it was a big hit. It's actually the first one
Yes.
made the most out of the
Yep.
whole series, also.
Yep.
But yeah, this is the only one that's rated R.
Yeah, it's interesting when we kicked off this podcast, because when you said we're going to do Bachelor Party, I'm like, oh god, yeah, that movie's going to peg the Zmed-O-Meter. This one, I didn't. I was like, I don't remember it being all that bad. Then I watched it. I'm like, okay, there's definitely some places where this pings the Zmed-O-Meter, but all in all, it's kind of. I want to say it's actually kind of a good. I mean, obviously the horrible stuff aside, it's actually a pretty good movie. It's
It
very very fun, very entertaining. Bachelor Party kind of is just all over the map. I mean, I get why it's a cult classic, but this actually is a pretty funny movie.
I am gonna.
I thought so anyway.
Well, I will say it's by the same writers as Bachelor Party. The
Is
people
that
who
right?
yes, the
Okay.
people who wrote this, Pat Proft and Neil Israel wrote Bachelor Party also. The director of this one is Hugh Wilson, who created WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh my god.
And he
Deep
came in.
deep cuts here.
Yes. He came in after this was being developed. He saw the script and he actually said that he took out a lot of the vulgarity and some of
Okay.
so he toned it down a little bit because he wanted it to be, he didn't want to just, there's a quote and I'd have to look for it, but he said he didn't want it just to be funny for like the fart jokes
Mm-hmm.
and like the vulgarity of it. He wanted it to actually be a comedy.
Sure.
And the producer, because after I watched it, I liked it too. I think I liked Bachelor Party a little bit better, but I still thought this was funny. But I was watching the special feature, so they had like a 20th anniversary documentary, and the producer said that it's basically just a bunch of funny sequences put together, which it is.
It
I mean,
is
that's
for sure.
and again, what we said about Bachelor Party, it's the slobs versus the snobs. This time
Mm-hmm.
it's in the police academy. But it's basically anti-authoritism. You have Steve Guttenberg, who is basically playing the Tom Hanks / Bill Murray /
The,
Chevy Chase type of character.
yeah, the slacker.
And I will say, I think, and I have nothing against Guttenberg, but I think when you compare, now that we've watched like this and Bachelor Party, you could see why Tom Hanks became the bigger star. I think just because even in Bachelor Party, just his charisma and star power stands out just a little bit more. Guttenberg's funny, but I don't know. I think in Bachelor Party, you still kind of sided with Tom Hanks,
Mm-hmm.
and let's just say it this way. After watching this, I think the MVP of Police Academy was G.W. Bailey. And it's not just because he played Rizzo on MASH, on my beloved MASH, but
Sure.
he
Our
was
beloved MASH, by the
our
way.
beloved MASH. He was great. G.W. Bailey was hilarious in this movie. So I give him
Yeah.
like the MVP of this movie. And maybe it's because, like I said, like Guttenberg is playing a type. He's playing that Bill Murray-ish, early 80s slob, anti-authority figure type.
Yeah,
And I
for sure.
just think other people have played it better. I don't think he was bad, but I just think other people have played it better.
I would agree with that, but I thought he was, but I was impressed. I thought he was like very good comedic actor. I didn't really, I mean, I knew him from Diner, and believe it or not, I saw 3 Men and a Baby before I saw this movie. So that's kind of my reference for Steve. I'm like, oh, he's actually really funny given this kind of material to work with. I thought.
Yeah, and I'm not ripping it. About with this, more than Bachelor Party, it's about the ensemble. So you at least have a lot of good characters. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not ripping Steve Guttenberg, because Steve Guttenberg in the 80s was a big star. So, he obviously had a fan base I'm not
Sure.
gonna take anything away from him. But you know, this movie, I think it relies a lot more on the ensemble cast, and like I said, G.W. Bailey for me is like the MVP. But then you have
I thought Commandant Lassard, that guy, that actor, was
oh,
pretty hilarious in that role.
George Gaines from Punky Brewster. He was
Yeah,
he was the
that's right.
stepdad in Punky Brewster. Yeah, he was good. He was really, really good. And there was like parts with that. Like I remember, of course, the famous podium scene
Mm-hmm.
with the with the blowjob. Now, see,
Yeah.
I forgot and thought it happened at the end to him. I didn't remember that it happened to
Very,
Mahoney.
very, very early in the movie, it happens to Commandant Lassard.
Yeah, I didn't remember that it happened to Mahoney at the end. I thought it happened to Commandant Lassard at when they graduate. So I mean, obviously when he walked into the thing, and that's a real Lady of the Night, by the way.
You're kidding.
No, she was an adult film star.
Oh, okay.
She was an adult film star. So she knew it. I mean, she knew what she was doing. I mean, I guess you figure you want authenticity, so you have to go get somebody who knows what they're doing. But yeah, for the ensemble cast, you have Tackleberry,
He was great. My favorite scene in the movie is when the shooting range, when he goes apeshit. He's like, "Come with me," and he's like shooting the targets from behind. I thought that was hysterical.
And I did want to start a new feature, and I think I texted this to you, but the Wendy Jo Sperber obituary page.
Mm-hmm.
Which for every one of these movies, unfortunately, we're going to find people who are not with us anymore. So just to start right off the bat, David Graff, who plays Tackleberry.
Tackleberry, really?
Yeah, he I think he passed away in like 2001, actually. So
oh, jeez.
Yeah, he was young when he passed away. And I mean, do you know him from anything else? This is basically when I know.
I can't tell you, but I know I saw him in something, and I remember going, "Holy crap, it's Tackleberry!" But it was probably a guest spot on a sitcom or something. I don't think it was a big deal that he was in it. But I can't. But beyond that, no, I don't remember him from much else. I thought he was great playing the lunatic military guy, kind of like discount Adam Baldwin, if you will. We have a lot. That's one thing we're introducing on this podcast is actors who how do we say this, Mike? They
who are kind of interchangeable. I mean, you could use one.
Yeah, I mean, there's
other.
actors we know for playing certain characters, playing them very well, and then like you said, when you can't get so and so, you get somebody else, and and then you and I were laughing the other day that the George Martin character is discount patron saint of the podcast, Agent Zmed. So
yes, George Martin, and I don't understand why did he have to do the Spanish accent.
Well, that's the conversation he has with Guttenberg. He's like, I know. So often you get that. He's like, that's how I get the girls. So I was like, does it work? So.
And he is also, sad to say, on the Wendy Jo Sperber obituary page. Yes, he passed away in 2015.
Oh, jeez.
At the age of 69. So yes, his actor is Andrew Rubin. So I don't even know what.
I thought it was Daniel Rubin, but okay, yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at his IMDb page. It's a lot of like TV and stuff. So I only know him from this. But yes, he is definitely discount Zmed. He is definitely discount Zmed. He is the Zmed type.
Yeah, you could totally see our beloved patron saint playing that role.
Yes, you could have. You of course have Bubba Smith, who is also on the
Bubba Smith, right? Yes. I for some reason I'm thinking Ed Too Tall Jones. No, it was Bubba Smith. That's right, because he actually did a fair amount of acting that I remember. I don't remember specifics, but he did his share.
He became big he was big in the 80s. It was a lot. Yeah. Him and and Dick Buckus were together a lot. I think weren't they on Airwolf together?
No, that was Jan Michael. That was Jan Michael Vincent and Ernest Borgnine.
No, but weren't they also on it? Weren't they? I thought they were. Were they on Blue Thunder, the TV show? Wait a minute, I'm checking now.
You might have to look that one up.
Hold on, I'm checking. I thought they were on.
Something with a helicopter.
Airwolf. Well, I mean, again, it was the 80s, so like the 80s had a lot of TV shows with helicopters on them. I'm just gonna say it was Airwolf. It's either Airwolf or it's Blue Thunder. I don't know which one, but he is also unfortunately another one on the Wendy Jo Sperber obituary list.
What?
Yes.
Well, I know. Well, Butkus passed, I believe,
Yes. Yes.
but I didn't know Tootall did as well.
Well, I will say
Bubba Smith. Excuse me.
thank God Michael Winslow is still with us.
Ah, the sound effects guy. Oh, he's great.
Monsignor Dr.
Yep.
Larvell Jones. Like, only in the 80s could, like, he become, like, a superstar. And this is all I know him for. I don't know what else he was in.
Well, I just remember him, like, often showing up on, maybe Johnny Carson late night TV shows, or if you remember variety shows in the 80s, like That's Incredible and so forth. I'm sure they had him on doing his shtick, which was incredible. And then I was like, then I'm like, oh man, they found a vehicle to use his talents in a movie, and I thought it was perfect what they used him for, and they didn't overuse him, which I was glad to see. Like where he pops up and does stuff is, he's shaving or playing a video game with no TV, and doing the machine guns to get the the mob off the police car. I mean, he was perfect.
I think that's a good point. Like, if they would have overused him, it would have become annoying. He's in it
100%.
just enough.
100%.
Of course, we have Kim Cattrall, and I think one of her earliest roles.
Oh, good God. Hall of Fame, my friend. Hall of Fame. I mean, I couldn't, fell in love back again with her. My wife had to make me watch Sex and the City, and she's gorgeous on that show. But
your wife made you watch Sex and the City.
I did not voluntarily watch that show.
It's okay.
But yeah, seeing her, I was like, holy. So see, and that's another thing that our old minds. I thought she was the Callahan role. I forgot she was the recruit hottie that Guttenberg was trying to, I think did score with.
Yeah. And she didn't really have, I mean, she was basically that you just described exactly what her character was. Like, hottie who Steve Guttenberg will hook up with and save at the end. That was her only function in the script,
Yeah. Well, it's his reason for, like, remember the pivotal scene where he's doing everything he can to get kicked out, and he's on the cusp of getting it, being successful, getting his sergeant to let him out, and he sees her out the window, and she does her little dance to show her thighs, and he's like, I can't leave. Okay, bye. And that was it.
Sorry, I tried, sir.
Yeah.
I do. Guttenberg does have a few good lines. Like, you disgust me, Mahoney. Or no, you make me sick, Mahoney. I make everybody sick, sir.
Yeah, he's very Hawkeye Pierce in this, if you think about it.
Yes, yeah, he is. He is.
So
you brought up Sergeant Callahan, Leslie Easterbrook. She was B-movie 80s star, right?
Well, she's very statuesque.
Oh, yes.
So I think she did a lot, as you and I were texting, the Jiggle films of the 80s, which is probably another rabbit hole we're going to go down to on this podcast.
If we must, we must. I mean, somebody's got to do it.
If you need a really good-looking figure in a bikini or something tight, she was a go-to girl.
But I was confused with her,
I thought she
too.
was very, very funny for what little she had to do in this.
Yeah,
I want more! She was the lunatic drill sergeant.
She was good. But she's another one. Her parts confused me because I remembered, like, in the second one, there's an Asian like recruit that, like, falls in love with her because discount Zmed, George Martin. This is the only movie he's in, so they had to find, like, another love interest for her. So she, like, there's, like, an Asian guy who she falls in love with, but I was expecting him to be in this one, so I was like, wait a minute, what's going on with it? And then I remembered, but yeah, I don't remember. I'm sure I've seen, like, other movies. And my my podcast partner from my other podcast, Movie Matt Saroyce, was mad at me with my my limited knowledge of jiggle film women. I'll have to read his text that he sent to me a little bit later in the podcast.
All right.
But you were talking about George Gaines. I do like the part when all the recruits are coming in and he's talking to, I guess, like, maybe the police chief. He's like, back in the old days, there were Johnsons as far as the eye can see.
And what a beautiful sight it was, sir.
Yeah, he's really good. He's very understated. He was cool. Like I said, I was watching the documentary, and he was still with it. Like this was 20 years ago. He's another one, obviously, that's on the Wendy Joe Sperber obituary page. But I mean, he was in his 90s then, and he said he had a great time. He and Guttenberg were messing around, but he said it's like what he had done like Shakespeare. He was classically trained, and this is what he was most known for. He said people would come up to him on the street and just talk to him about Police Academy.
What do you intend to do about Mahoney? What's he done, sir? What's he done? That's just the way he delivered those lines. It's just, I thought it was very, very funny.
It is funny when he's standing there at the podium and he's like, "See."
Yeah. The first slide.
That's it.
My God, you wouldn't believe it. Yeah, I forgot, and I didn't remember him being in it as much as he was, but he had, just like you were touching on at the beginning here, like this is an ensemble cast, and yeah, I guess Gutenberg has the most screen time, but they really did give a lot of people their due. Leslie got a fair amount of time.
Yeah, he's definitely that guy.
Bubba Smith, the two knuckleheads that are trying to.
Yeah, I mean, they were taken out of early to mid '80s Central douchebag blonde guy casting.
Right.
And I'm actually watching the movie while we're talking, and they're lining up, and I'm going to use a word that should not be used, but when he's standing there talking to his friend, he's like, "There's a lot of spades here," and then Bubba Smith reaches his hand out and touches him.
Yeah, they're doing the touch,
which is good. Which is good. And you could tell they're wearing wigs because they said they filmed early in the filming. They filmed them getting their hair cut. Okay. So they had to get the hair cut off, and then they had to go back and film the introduction part. So they had to go out and buy them like terrible wigs, and you could tell if you're watching it.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look because I thought they actually shaved them for the scene, but I believe you.
No, they did. They shaved them, but they had to film. They had to film the beginning scenes. They were already shaved, so they had to wear wigs. So yeah. But yeah, I think when we get to the Zmed-O-Meter and talk about the stuff that you probably couldn't do, they're going to be brought up. A lot. But yeah, they're
100%.
like right out of like the early '80s douchebag casting call right there.
Yeah, they got to have the protagonist, which is usually the jock-like character in Revenge of the Nerds or any number of such movies, Ski Patrol, etc.
Mm-hmm. And they did it well. I mean, they actually.
It's pretty funny that there were two of them, and the one guy's kind of like a knucklehead, and the other guy's like the alpha male.
And Copeland was the knucklehead. He was funny. He actually, they were
very much
funnier than I remember. Like when at the end when, and like we said in the first podcast, we're not going to go through this scene by scene. We're just going to give our thoughts. Like at the end when they're up against the fence and they're kind of like mocking the people because they think they're behind the fence. Like, you want this? You want this? And they walk to the opening.
The opening.
And they both turn to each other and they kind of like hit helmets together and run away. Or even like the part when they're trying to get Mahoney into the fight. And he's standing there like, "I'm going to put this all over your face." And he hits him with like the tray. And he just stands there for a second. Yeah, we got to talk about Leslie Barbara, who, first of all, if that was me going into the police academy, that would have been my mother while she's like crying and like hugging him. And he's like, "No, Mom, I got to go." Yeah, I admit that would have been my mom. She would not have wanted me to go. But you have that part at the beginning where his dog gets loose and the dog's humping Lassard's leg.
Right.
He thinks it's a she, and he's like, I think it's a he. And even then, it starts with like the gay panic where he's like, "You and your queer dog."
Queer dog, right?
Oh, man, we're going after the dog already. Sheesh.
Something not offensive, of course, but think about this, Mike. Leslie starts out and he's in a one of those, I don't know, what were they called, photomats or whatever?
Yes.
In like the parking lot of a mall. And it just kind of made me laugh. Like, man, I bet, what generation would actually that would see this movie would even know what the hell that was.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, if I showed my son this, he would have been like, "What is that?" I'd be like, "Well, you had to go get your photos processed. You didn't just have them on your phone. They didn't just appear 2 seconds
even more
later."
than that, I mean, remember that. I mean, that's basically what they were, was a camera shaped or a yellow, blue toll booth, for lack of a better thing, with a yellow roof. And these are always in like the middle of parking lots of like shopping centers. Good Lord, can you imagine? God bless anybody who had to work in one of them. I never did, but oh my goodness. I mean, you know, you and I are going to have like a list of like the most 80s things we see in the movie. And I think right now that's got to be number one. I mean, just that is
Yeah.
such an 80s thing that we don't, you know, of what we've done, the two things we've done so far, right? But when I
Yeah, that's
saw that, I'm like, holy crap.
yeah,
A
that's that.
photo mat. Oh
It's
my
definitely
Lord.
like placing a time marker, like for a certain point of time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
The only
remember it did flash me back to my because it was in the shopping bag that was in Southwest Philadelphia. We had the photo mat was in the parking lot of the
in the parking
shopping
lot.
bag.
Okay.
Yep, and I remember my mom driving up and dropping off film, and then we'd go back and pick it up. Yeah,
The
but
only
we
other
have.
movie, the other time I can think it made an appearance was Back to the Future.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think the terrorists smashed through one while they're chasing.
Yes, they do, and that's in like the parking lot of a mall. So
Yeah. I mean, my goodness. I mean, you know, I'm gonna think like a photo mat, and then when there's movies we'll probably talk about where there's like an arcade. You know, kids are
yeah.
playing like Space Invaders and everything. I'm like, those are, you know, because I was thinking about showing my kids this, but I'm like, I'm not showing them this movie.
No, you can't. You'll get to the part where they have the party, and it's just first of all, you know it's an '80s movie because Tackleberry is playing the saxophone. Because like
Right.
if you
Yeah.
were cool, you had to play. And supposedly David Graff, who plays Tackleberry, was like an accomplished saxophone player. So I guess they were like,
Okay.
okay, we'll let you play the saxophone. But as he plays the saxophone, it's just like the conga line of topless women just go by
Yeah.
him for no reason whatsoever.
Got to earn that R.
That's right. And then the other part when Mahoney's outside the lady's
Oh,
shower,
the girl's back.
drinking a beer and just watching, and then Harris catches him and he walks away, and the girls see Harris.
Ah!
I'm sorry, I cannot stress it enough. G.W. Bailey, hilarious in this movie. He
Yeah.
is great. Uh, He is great in this movie.
Oh,
And that was
absolutely.
another part. I forgot the part at the end where he's riding the motorcycle and he stops and he goes flying and
Oh, right.
you're supposed to think that he goes into the horse's ass. I thought that happened in another movie. I forgot that he anally penetrated a horse in this movie.
Well,
with
they alluded to it. We
with
don't know, but
with his head. Let's just get that straight. With his head, with his upper body. Well, I do like that when it's after and he's walking around. He's got like you could tell he just got out of the shower because he has his
yeah,
hair
his
all
hair's all slicked down and
his
everything.
hair's all slicked down. You told
No
no
one?
one.
Not a
Nobody's
soul.
not a soul, sir.
And then you knew Michael Winslow was going to do the horse, and that was just that had to happen.
The only thing I was disappointed with, and I was looking like up and down IMDb, there was no listing for the kid in the MASH shirt, which
Well,
I
it was
knew,
you. That was you.
That was me. I knew it was going to catch your eye because it caught my eye. I was like, "What's got that shirt on?" And I had that. I had that shirt when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I definitely had that shirt.
Oh, I'm sure. I think I did. I'm sure I did at one point too. That was probably a hand-me-down from my older brothers, but I think we had one. And that's another thing. Kids watching it say, like, what's Smash 477? Like,
Well, my kids know. Not that they watch it, but my kids know. I've been trying. I can't get them to watch it. They won't do it.
Give them a few years.
I know. I mean, I already got them into comic books and Star Wars. I mean, you can't win them all. But yeah, like you were saying, when I started watching this, I think we just brought it up. There's the topless scenes, but other than that, I think Hugh Wilson, like he said, he did kind of tone down the overly vulgar type of content that was in here. I understand why it was rated R because of the topless scenes, but it's still a pretty good comedy, and it doesn't just rely on like the gross out or the vulgarity parts.
No, I think they did a nice job of giving it its wavelength. If they had put in a lot of that, it would have just felt very forced and wouldn't have made sense. Like everything in Bachelor Party makes sense because that's just pure hedonism and decadence and vulgarity. But if they had gone off the rails in this one, it wouldn't really. I mean, it's police academy training. It's supposed to, have a serious bent to it. The epiphany of Mahoney and becoming the hero, etc. I don't. If they had a lot of vulgarity in there, I don't know if it probably would have felt out of place.
But
funny, but out of place.
Yeah, I mean, I think one remnant of well, the 80s or maybe the early 80s is, and I kind of made a joke about it, but like a lot of gay jokes. A lot of, I mean,
Yeah, well,
the famous, I mean,
that was the 80s.
The Blue Oyster Bar is the most famous. And I will say, I thought that scene was longer. And I think I'm thinking about Police Academy 2. And I will say, that joke, they're not so much as, it's not these, flamboyantly, like,
No,
flamboyant stereotypes. I mean, it's more making fun of the two bullies who are going in there.
right.
And they bring it back for the end because when the riots are happening, they run into
They
like the
bust
back.
into it.
Yeah, but that's like a genuinely funny scene. But I mean, I brought up like Leslie's dog, who they call a queer. Well, they call him the homo.
Right.
And I'm sure there's other ones. I mean, that was kind of like a remnant of the 80s because it was still an unenlightened time back then. I definitely don't think you'd be seeing that today.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's when you can see what they did there too, and I think when they first go into the place, all the for a few minutes you think it's the cop bar because they're all dressed like Eric Estrada. It took a few minutes till you registered. Oh, this is a gay bar for men.
They're all roommates. I say that
Yeah.
because I remember as a kid I have an uncle who who's gay, and when we were kids we didn't know, and I remember visiting him, and when we went home he had gotten divorced. He had been married, and I remember my mom and dad. I said, "Well, who's the guy he lives with?" And they were like, "Oh, that's his roommate." And it was like 5 years later I was like, "Wait a minute, hold on." So,
Yeah,
and of course, the other, and we cannot say this because this is something you could never say, is when Bubba Smith wakes Mahoney up to have
oh,
him
right.
teach him how to drive at 2:00 in the morning, and Mahoney's like, "It's 2:00 in the morning," and he's like, can you help me? And he's like, "Sure." Sleeping's for, and I cannot repeat.
FAGS.
Yes, I cannot repeat the word that you would definitely not be hearing again.
We're getting into this Zmed-O-Meter here, so
Yes.
should we segue?
No. I mean, because
Okay.
no, because there are other things that we need to talk about that could
Oh, okay.
never be done today. I mean, we can bring up, and I of course don't know her real name. Oh, Marion Ramsey, who plays Hooks. Who
Yes.
is the soft-spoken. And did you know that she's wearing a fat suit in this movie?
No.
Yeah, she's wearing a fat suit. It's funny because she tells the story. She was going to go in for the audition, and she didn't know how she was going to play the character, and she's a singer, and she said the night before she had been visited backstage by Michael Jackson, who
You're
came
kidding me.
up to her and said, I really liked your show," and like kissed her on the cheek. So when she went in for the interview, for the audition,
She took his voice?
she did the audition in like a Michael Jackson voice, and that's how she got the part.
Oh my God.
But again,
That's a great story.
it
Holy
is.
smokes.
And she doesn't do much in this movie, but you remember her. Like, I have remembered her all these years. I didn't know her real name, but I remember that character. But that's another part with the.
But now you tell that story, I get the voice now. Oh my gosh, she was totally doing. Yeah, MJ. Holy smokes.
Of course, I do feel bad for her because in like all the sequels, she just has to have the one part where she's like, "Freeze, dirtbag!" She talks really quiet during all the other sequels, and she has to have the one part where she pulls a gun and tells a dirtbag to freeze. But
okay.
we do have that part with her at the end where it's actually funny when she goes for the driving test, and is it Santa Claus is coming to town that
Right.
is like playing, and she's driving around the course, and she's like, woo! She's going through, and the water comes down. She's like, "Oh no!" And then she drives over the feet of one of the douchebags, and he like calls her a racial slur, which causes Bubba Smith to flip over the car. And again, I just don't think, even in a comedy, you would not be seeing
No.
this at all. I mean, I was uncomfortable saying spades earlier. That's something I don't think. Maybe like your old, like 75-year-old uncle at Thanksgiving dinner might utter that word. But other than that, I don't think you really hear anybody saying that nowadays. At least not anybody I know.
Yeah, the only time I can think of it, was Eastwood. You dropped it in Gran Torino.
Wow. Wasn't that what the whole movie was about?
Well, yeah, he's pretty much a racist
I was
character.
gonna say that's his character, right?
Yeah, but I don't. To your point, I don't think you drop it in a comedy.
Nah, yeah, you're not dropping that in a comedy
But I think
nowadays.
they're just trying to show how much of an idiot. And then later on, I noticed, and I think his car actually has a Confederate flag on the
Yes, when they
on his 1980 Honda Civic.
I was gonna ask you what kind of car that was, because he says to him, like, it would be really good if we took out the front seats so we had more room, and it cuts the Hightower taking the front seats out, and he's like, okay, I was joking, but this is good. This is
Comfort's
good.
good.
It's comfortable. Yeah, it's comfortable. So when the two douchebags are looking at the car, they're like, Mahoney.
Mm.
He's the only one who could have done
he's
this.
just whimpering. Yeah.
And you're right, though. I did notice. I was like, oh, yeah, there's the Confederate flag right on the front. Unfortunately, nowadays you might see that on somebody's car, which is sad to think about. But you actually might see that on somebody's car nowadays.
Well, it has, it's, we talked about this last time. The lenses were different back then.
Uh-huh.
It's a symbol of, in this day and age, it's known to be a symbol of hate. It means to some folks, I guess particularly black folks, it's as menacing as the Nazi flag is to the Jewish people. But as back then, it was on the the hood of the General Lee. You didn't think it was an evil symbol.
Or the roof. Was it on the roof?
Sorry. You're right.
Was it the roof?
My bad. It was the roof.
The roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I brought up at the beginning the you and your wife do it doggy style, that was like George Martin when he's talking to the I always forget. I keep thinking it's Tim Kazurinsky.
No, it's the nerdy guy.
Yeah, the nerdy guy when he's like, "Oh, you're married?" You and your wife do it. Bruce Mahler is his real name, the actor's name. His the character's name was Doug Fackler.
Okay.
He says to him, "You married? You happy? You and your wife do it doggy style?"
Or what? Yeah.
His wife in the beginning. His wife actually, he comes back, I think, for the third one. And
you're kidding.
And his wife joins the force.
Oh, okay.
But that was funny. I remember that part where she runs out and she jumps onto the.
How about she's like doing like the gymnastics through the backyards to catch up to him?
Yeah, with the horrible stunt double. That maybe it's just because it's on DVD that you can see that it's obviously not.
Oh, it's like five different people, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Because at one point she jumps in the pool, and I think that the person who gets out of the pool is like the third stunt person. And it's just, it's kind of funny watching this with a more educated eye. Like when they're driving through the riots in the cop car, it's supposed to be Lassard driving. It looks like a guy who's like in his 20s. I'm like, okay, that's probably not supposed to see that, but I noticed that in one of the scenes.
The same thing with G.W. Bailey when he's on the motorcycle. At one point,
I know.
It's like, that is so obviously not him.
Yeah, like the stunt guy looks like he's 6'4", and G.W. Bailey is probably not even 6 foot. It's pretty funny when you see that.
I do want to sing his praises now. I know I keep bringing him up, but so I knew him, especially when I first watched this. I knew him from MASH, and I
100%.
He has survived. He is a great character actor, and it's because he could play this part where he's playing like the dickhead authoritarian figure. In MASH, he was Rizzo, where he was the lazy, he was in the motor pool, and he was the slacker, try to get out of work at all costs, lazy motor pool. I don't, what was he? Probably a private in the army. He definitely wasn't like a, he's been in like so many roles. He was in St. Elsewhere. He's been in so many TV shows.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he was in like the first season. I think he was in the first season of St. Elsewhere, and then he left. But
now, was he a regular character or just kind of like a bit part like he done on MASH?
No, he was a regular.
Just shows up.
He was a regular character. I think he played a psychiatrist. I can't remember. I've only watched. I started because it was on Hulu. I started watching St. Elsewhere, and then I fell out of it because I was watching something else. But no, and it's a totally like serious role. So that's what I mean. I mean, he can do serious. He can do funny. He can do authority figures. He can do weirdos. I just like him. You know when he's showing up, like you're getting a good performance from G.W. Bailey. And to me, I think he's the funniest in this movie. I think he's funnier than Guttenberg. I think he is, like I said, he's the MVP of the cast for me in this movie.
Yeah, he does great work, and it was funny to me when I saw this because I had only known him as Zale, and he only shows up.
No, as Rizzo.
Excuse me, Rizzo, and he
Yeah,
only shows up very sporadically in that show. And so, like, oh my god, I'm going to see this guy in in full actor mode. This is crazy.
Much like George Martin is the discount
Mhm.
Zmed, Rizzo was like the discount Zale, or Zale was the discount Rizzo.
Okay.
Whichever one you like best.
Got it.
I didn't remember this one as much as I remembered Bachelor Party. So this was like totally rediscovering. Because like I said, they all just like kind of melded into one just from watching. I've probably seen like I said, the first 3 or 4 that I watched a lot when I was a kid. So they kind of like imprinted, but they all just have like jumbled together into one as I'm watching it on the TV when Tackleberry pulls out the Magnum and just blows the target away.
Oh, right. He just blows it in half.
G.W. Bailey's like, where did you get that?
My mom gave it to me.
Can I hold that for a second? And later in the movie when he's like, son, can you help me get the cat out of the tree? And you don't see anything. And as you know, I do think cats are underrated. So do not
100%.
Do not hurt cats. But they definitely make Tackleberry. He becomes a lot more cartoonish, as does the whole series eventually. But he becomes like a lot more cartoonish in the
he's in the sequels. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's in all of them actually. I think him and like George Gaines and 1 or 2 other people, possibly Bubba Smith, all appear in all of them. I mean, in all honesty, and I'm not saying this to disparage him, but what else was David Gray? I'm sure he was doing guest spots on like TV shows and stuff, but it's not like he had like the Steve Guttenberg 80s career after this. So, but this is, and I brought it up in the beginning, this is something that happened in the 80s. This and something like Rambo that started out as an R-rated movie became, by the early 90s, this was an animated show on like Saturday mornings or whatever, or afternoons or whatever it is. So this, it had talking animals that were the sidekicks of like the police officers and stuff like that. So this went from an R-rated raunchy comedy to an animated TV show within 10 years. And it was the same thing with like Rambo that started out with the, First Blood and Rambo. And then by the mid-90s, it was Rambo, what was it, Forces of Freedom or whatever that was. That was the discount G.I. Joe. We're going with discount Zmed and discount Zale. That was the discount G.I. Joe, was Rambo, Forces of Freedom.
Oh, it's an animated show.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that was like a big 80s thing where things would start out as like raunchy, and just by like 10 years later, it was like your kids were watching. Maybe they just knew the kids were watching it anyway. So
that's pretty funny.
And Police Academy was a TV show also by the late 90s. There was
a live action.
A live action, yeah. It was syndicated. It was a live action syndicated TV show. Yep. I think there was like special guest appearances by like Tackleberry and Hightower. I mean, obviously Steve Guttenberg was too big by then to be guest starring on a syndicated TV show. But yeah, so yeah, it ended. I think it went 1 season, 97, 98. It was a live action syndicated TV show. So I mean, this came out in 84. 14 years for the whole Police Academy series. It's not bad.
That is pretty incredible that it hung on that long.
Although they did say, we're joking about Mission to Moscow or whatever it's called.
Right.
I think it wasn't even fully released. I mean, it was basically right above straight to video. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, I think it was released in a couple hundred theaters, and then it just went like straight to video.
Okay. So that was probably the beginning of that kind of release pattern. Okay.
So, do you want to get into the Zmed-O-Meter for Police Academy?
Yep. Yes, let's do it.
All right, so now you go first. Where do you rate Police Academy on the Zmed-O-Meter?
Well, remember last time we got to do it through the decades. So today, I think the gay bashing and the racism would peg it. I think it's a 10.
Oh, wow. Now, what would you put it in 1984 on the
Well,
Zmed-O-Meter?
I mean, that was, I'm doing air quotes, okay. I mean, that was considered comedy back then. I mean, you think of dozens of movies that made fun of the gay community, and I don't remember so much and then maybe it was a thing, but, well, even, goodness gracious, Back to the Future did it. Like, they, of all the wholesome movies of the 80s, they're like, beat it, so and
Right.
so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This don't concern you. So it's like, it was, again, air quotes, okay back then.
Mhm.
Everyone, Blazing Saddles, among other movies, it was part of the culture that was part of the comedy. But so probably then it was, a nothing on this bed meter.
Yeah, I think for
This is a
1984,
movie of extremes.
yeah, you're damn straight it is. I think for 1984, I'd give it like maybe a 2
Really?
just for the toplessness. Like,
All
okay,
right.
how about a 1? A 1 because that was a lot more prevalent back in
It
1984.
was the decade of jiggle movies.
Yeah, you're right. So I'll give it a 1.
All
A
right.
1, and that's not even like that's not even like a hard one. It's just that's a 1. But yeah, for 2024, I'd give it a 10 on the
Yeah.
Zmed-O-Meter, and it's not even for the jiggle. It's just for the
No, it's
for for the racist jokes and the homophobic.
homophobicness of it all. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's got to definitely be a 10. Did you want to hear what some of the we actually had feedback for the first
For the
episode.
first one. It's
We
excellent.
did. We had feedback for the first episode. Um, and let me get it for you because I actually do have it here. We actually we got reviewed. We got 3 5-star reviews on Apple, and I always hear this on podcasts I listen to, so I'm gonna I'm gonna try to be like the professional podcaster, like most people I hear. Everybody, go out there. If you listen to us on Apple Podcast, rate and review us because it just helps get the word out there and it helps get the podcast to a larger audience. So if you like what you're hearing, if you like the ramblings of both of us idiots, just go onto Apple Podcast and rate and review us. We would really appreciate it. Somebody did go on Apple Podcast. 3 people did because we got 3 5-star reviews, but somebody did leave a review. And they said, Zemedophiles welcome. And it says, all others who are fans of the 80s campy comedies, prepare to cringe and laugh while watching this old classic. And double enjoyment. I bet you know exactly why some of the humor fails to reach the bar today as well. Revisit it all and enjoy these relics that we enjoy, and remember why they have been shelved for so long. Enjoy. And that's from, I don't know if I'm reading this right, Travel McTravel Phase. I don't
That's
know.
so excellent.
I don't know who that is. It's probably somebody I know, which I say thank you, but maybe it's not. But thank you for the 5-star review. Thank you for the review. As I said, for everybody listening out there, go on the Apple Podcast or Spotify, give us a review, give us a 5-star review. That would really be great. We'd really appreciate it. On Twitter, we did have a couple people chime in on Bachelor Party, and they gave us their Zmed-O-Meter ratings for Bachelor Party. So we had Bill Pauly on Twitter. He said, great podcast. Really enjoyed listening to it. There's a Zmed-O-Meter for Bachelor Party. 1984, a 3. 2024, an 8. And he said,
Only an 8.
yeah, well, he said, times have changed since watching and being a preteen the first time I watched. It means I didn't realize how raunchy it was. Yeah, so he gave it an 8. I don't know. It's almost like I feel like this is like, I feel that's kind of right. Bachelor, like I said, maybe with Hanks, and maybe it's because now we know Tom Hanks and, we get those warm and fuzzy feelings with Tom Hanks that we can kind of like let it go. And
because it's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, so maybe we're being a little bit harder on Police Academy because it's not Tom Hanks, you know what I mean?
Right.
And Tom Hanks himself in that movie isn't really the one who's really doing anything. It's all the friends and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Zed's the devil on his shoulder, for God's sakes, and that's why we love him.
For sure.
We also had, and this is my, we were bringing up MASH earlier. This is my MASH friend, Bella Sissa, who I know from the Best Care Anywhere podcast. We became friends through there. She chimed in and gave it, she gave Bachelor Party 1984 Zed's a 3, and 2024 Zed's an 8.
Another 8. Interesting.
Yeah. And she said, this is such a great idea, and the episode had me grinning all the way to work and home again. If you're Gen X, this is a must listen. So thank you, Bella Sissa. And I have a feeling that Bella Sissa is going to be on here very soon to join us for a movie that she reached out and said she wants to cover with us. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be coming soon. We also had Transplant Rockstar, who's another person I've met through MASH Twitter and MASH podcasts. He said for the 80s, a 5 on the Zmed-O-Meter. But then again, all the dirty parts were there. In fact, I had such a wonderful time. I'm thinking about changing my name to Spike. He also said, really fun episode, several laugh out loud moments, and so many great quotes in the movie. But he told me to get them right because I think I messed up a couple of them. He also said, cannot wait for Police Academy, so I hope he's listening right now. And said, thank you for the podcast we all need, but may not realize that we need it. Yes, that's what we're here for. I mean, we're doing it. We're doing a public service for everybody.
So let me ask you this question. Okay. Do you think this was ever put out on standard TV?
It was. I'm glad you brought that up, because they talked about on IMDb, which was great, because I'm like,
because I'm trying to think. I guess they have to cut it.
It was so big. I guess I can see why they put it out. But yeah, they said, they block out all the toplessness and stuff. Yeah,
sure.
And then they just change. They go and ADR all the language. So all the language is ADR'd. I think what does that mean? Additional dialogue recording. So it's like, when you watch a movie and somebody's talking, they're like, "Hi, how you doing, Mister?" And it's like, "Mr. Herman." It's like somebody else. It's like from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Okay. It's like when somebody goes in after and records dialogue over it. But it's usually when you don't see the person talking, they'll add to it if they need to add to a scene. But you remember, as we're both at the same age, so we would watch these movies on like standard TV, so you could tell whenever they had to go over the dialogue that wouldn't fly on network television.
Okay.
The voice would change. It's like watching Die Hard, like on regular TV with all. I mean, that's like the extreme example of it, because there's so many F-bombs in that movie that they had to change the.
Yippee-ki-yay, you silly person.
No, it's Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
Oh, okay.
You silly person actually would have been a better choice.
Mm-hmm.
No, but they said the one part when she does run over his foot, he says, "You ran over my foot, you dumb nincompoop," is what they
okay.
Is what they So they replaced it with that.
Okay. Wow, there sure are a lot of tall people here.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And he looks at Bubba. He looks at Bubba Smith. Yeah.
You actually probably yours was probably more wittier than whatever they came up with, in all honesty. We also had, like I said, I mentioned my my podcast partner from the Mass Faces and Secret Bases podcast, movie Matt Royce. He was disappointed in me because I didn't know. He said he found my lack of knowledge of Monique Gabriel's filmography disturbing, because we had gotten into a conversation about Tawny Katan and Monique Gabriel from the Bachelor Party episode previously.
Okay.
So he just was disappointed in my lack of smutty movie knowledge, which I admit I'm embarrassed, and I hung my head in shame, because I need to do better, and I promise I will do better. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Police Academy?
Just the subtle lines I thought were really great in this movie. This is the one part when Mahoney is walking with Bubba, and he's like, "What do you do?" He's like, I do florist." He's like, "Florist?" He goes, "Yeah, flowers and shit."
That's right. Like
There's
you said, like
so many
Bubba
subtle
Smith,
ones in this movie.
Bubba Smith was actually, for somebody who didn't have a lot of acting credits and didn't have a lot of experience in acting, I thought he was very good. He was very understated. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he gets up at the podium. Thanks.
That was good. That was really good.
I sometimes, talking about those two lines, just those two lines you mentioned, I wonder if he improv those. I almost could wonder. I could see him doing that.
I think they actually said that he didn't want to have to give a long he didn't want to have to memorize too many lines and was
Okay.
nervous about his acting and didn't want to have to go up there and give a long speech. So they basically just gave him that just to go up there and say thanks. And they said it kind of fit his character.
It played, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's also when Harris says, Mahoney, remember that nobody screws with me. And he's like, well, maybe if you meet the right girl and all that will change.
Again, a very Hawkeye Pierce
I was going to say,
line.
Mahoney is very, very Hawkeye Pierce in this. What else do we have?
Yeah, and he's kind of the Frank character.
I did forget a good Tackleberry line. And this is the only time in the whole series that Tackleberry actually uses a curse. When they're practicing, when Harris says, I'm walking out the window, I have the stereo, and he walks up and he's like, drop that stereo before I blow your goddamn nuts off, asshole.
Oh, right. That's also a very funny scene. Because you remember that's when Callahan flips Leslie and like, who's next? Everyone's like, me.
I'll be next, I promise, I'll be next. Oh, and I was on, this is for Transplant Rockstar, because I want to get the quotes right. George Martin says, to me, marriage is a sacred institution. So tell me, you and your wife do it doggy style or what?
What? There you go.
That was good too with Harris. Speaking of Tackleberry, when they're going to the riot, and he's kind of giving them the speech for being sent to a safe area away from the disturbance. Our job will be to divert traffic away from the trouble zone and protect public property. You will have live ammunition, but there will be no call to use it. Tackleberry, do you understand, numbnuts?
Oh, that's right. There was a numbnuts. That's a term not used enough in cinema in my mind.
No, I think that's a very 80s term. You're right. It's criminally
and perfectly used with Tackleberry.
Criminally underused nowadays.
Yes. Yep.
And that was good too at the end of it when Tackleberry's he's slamming his head against the car, and they're like,
"What's wrong with this man?"
There's gunplay, sir, and he missed it. It's another good insult that is not used as much. Pissant. When Harris says, then Mahoney, my little pissant,
yeah.
You are out of the academy forever. Too bad, so sad. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's right, he did drop a pissant.
Yeah, see?
You're right, that's not utilized enough.
Oh, I do want to get it was the Chief Ernst in the very beginning, when he's like, they all used to be the right color, the right height. There's another Zmed-O-Meter. It's
there you go.
The Zmed-O-Meter start to jiggle. They all used to be the right color, the right height, the right weight, and they all had Johnson's, Lassard. Johnson's? Oh, yes, there were Johnsons far as the eye can see. Yes, and what a lovely sight it was.
You hear these things, these little zingers, you just wonder if they were some of those, how many of those might have been improv. I could just see them.
Well, I think, like I said, with Hugh Wilson, when he came in, the original script was relying more on the tits and ass and the gross out kind of stuff. And I think he added a lot more of and like you said, like it's very much like he sounds like Hawkeye Pierce. He created and wrote a lot of WKRP. So that's another one of my favorite sitcoms. So you could see his hand in the script with that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that he probably added a lot of that kind of stuff.
Got it. Okay.
I swear to God, I want a spinoff. I want a prequel to Police Academy with Lieutenant Harris, with the G.W. Bailey character. He's still alive, so he could narrate it.
All right, good on him.
He could be writing his memoirs, and he could do the early years of Lieutenant Harris, because like I said, he was hilarious. He was hilarious in this movie. Just when he's making fun of Hooks. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? And she's like, I want to be a police officer. What? I can't hear you. I want to be a police officer. Don't unpack, yeah.
He just keeps polishing his cane. Or whatever that device is.
Somebody said he originally did not have it. He picked it up from somewhere once, and somebody said that it looked good for the character, so he used it after that. But he wasn't supposed to have it. But he's got another one where he's like, and again, with age, I think I kind of have to start agreeing with him, because Mahoney is annoying. He wants to get thrown out, but when he's like, Mahoney, I'd like to spend the next 10 weeks breaking you into little pieces, but I won't, because you're bad. You're bad for morale, Mahoney. Oh, you look like the sweet little boy from next door, but you don't fool me. Oh no, you're the devil, and you're rotten to the core. and you're
That's right.
ruining my chance to train some people who might make pretty good cops. In a way, he's kind of right. Like I said, I feel like in Bachelor Party, I could get behind Tom Hanks a little bit more, maybe just because he's Tom Hanks. In this one, I was a little bit more like with Mahoney. All right, like Mahoney's, he's kind of annoying.
Yeah. All right, that's. I could see your point of view on that. I forgot.
yeah.
I love the part in the beginning when I forgot when he parks the car on two wheels.
Oh
Ladies,
yeah.
wig, ladies.
And it was
Although
filmed.
I was just sad to see the demise of a sweet Trans Am, but so be it. It was disposable.
God,
But it was disposable back then.
that also like makes this like an early '80s movie because that Trans Am is like super early '80s.
Yeah, well, it's what we all wanted because of Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. It's funny because I think it was filmed. This was filmed in like Toronto, but I'm watching that.
Is that right?
It looks like Center City, Philadelphia, back in the early '80s when I used to go with my dad to work. Yeah, it was. They filmed in it. They never say what city they're in, but they filmed it in Toronto.
Do you know where they filmed the Police Academy portion?
It was a former insane asylum that had been.
You're kidding me.
No, that had been abandoned. I think it was also in Canada. I think it was cheaper to film in Canada, so they filmed it in Canada. But yeah, it was a former insane asylum.
That is fantastic.
Yep. And I do want to get the quote right. I'm sorry. It was, "You make me sick." And then Mahoney's like, "Thank you, sir. I make everybody sick."
Everybody's sick. Yeah. Again, so very Hawkeye Pierce.
Yes. See, like, I am looking at it. The TV version edited with no swearing, and yeah, he's like, "Sorry, you dumb fat nincompoop."
They kept the fat portion in there. Okay,
Yes, they did keep the fat fat portion. I wonder what they did with the sleeping is for what part.
Sleeping is for lazy people or something like that. If they even just cut that whole part out,
maybe
that's a part.
Sleeping is for tall people.
Yeah, something like that.
So I don't know. What do you think? That was Police Academy then.
Yep. It was a good trip down memory lane, but we got to talk about the next one. Dun, 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 dun.
Now, what is the next one is going to be? Well, we did. First of all, I want to say that I had put a poll up on our Facebook page and on Twitter, and you know what? I had Revenge of the Nerds, I had Zapped, and I had two other ones that I just thrown on there, and I can't remember what they were, and obviously nobody cared about them because Revenge of the Nerds won in a landslide over Zapped. Zapped got one vote. Revenge of the Nerds got all the other votes.
Well, it's probably because correct me if I'm wrong, that was a very successful movie, so more than likely a lot of folks have seen it. I don't know how many might have actually seen Zapped or bothered.
And I actually think Revenge of the Nerds came out in 1984 also. I have to check that.
You're kidding me.
I think it did. 1984 was a good year for smut, I'll tell you what.
That's just way to say. It's a good year for jiggle movies.
Good year for jiggle movies. So yes, our next episode is going to be Revenge of the Nerds, which I have not watched probably in 40 years. Maybe not 40 years, but like 35. I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen Revenge of the Nerds. I know parts of it. I know the famous parts of it. I know the characters like Booger and Poindexter, the two main guys, but I don't know their. It's what's the name? I can't even remember. Ted McGinley is in it. John Goodman's the coach of the.
That's right.
Yes, John Goodman's the coach. So I'm sure when I watch it, it's all going to come back to me. But yeah, I have not watch Revenge of the Nerds.
And it's Anthony Edwards is one of the nerds.
Yes, he is, and not David Carradine, but one of the Carradine brothers. I can't remember which one, but one of the Carradine brothers. Is it Robert Carradine? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, Robert.
That's right.
And Timothy Busfield.
He's Poindexter, right?
He's Poindexter on the violin. That's right. And
yep.
Lewis and Gilbert. And Lewis and Gilbert will be joining in.
But here's another deep cut on that one. Do you remember who the dad was? Rick, when he's driving, he's like, "I'm going to take it up to 50."
Okay, I remember Dad.
Very a pretty accomplished actor.
I remember the dad being like that, but who is it?
Oh crap! You're going to make me answer it.
No, I thought you knew. I mean, we could just save this for next episode.
You're right. We're getting to, but that'll be everyone's homework is to look up who the dad was because it's always funny when you see folks that went on to fairly, maybe not George Clooney, Brad Pitt careers, but
not Tom Hanks' bachelor party to
right,
to Oscar career.
But it's kind of funny. I was like, holy smokes, that guy, he went on to quite a career in TV and movies.
Okay. So see,
kind
now
of like I would have. It's not Sam Neill, but kind of like a Sam Neill, who's like, definitely a guy who had steady and consistent and acclaimed work throughout his career.
Okay. See, now I have something else to look forward to when I watch it.
I can't think of anybody else who might have shown up that was, on the
cusp
on the cusp of their career. Yeah, yeah. Because I think Ted McGinley was pretty established at that point.
Yeah, he had already destroyed 3 or 4 TV shows and was moving on to Love Boat, or I think he was done Happy Days. Maybe he was moving on to Married with Children by then.
That's right. All right, I can't wait.
So yeah, the next episode will be Revenge of the Nerds. Until the next episode, like I said, I'm going to shill for us. Please go on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, rate and review us, share us with your friends, with your family. If you want to give your rating on Police Academy on the Zmed-O-Meter, go to our Facebook page.
Yes, please.
Cinema.
Love to hear people's feedback on that one.
Yeah, or go to Twitter. We're at SleazeBag. So it's at SleazeBag. So at SleazeBag, or just look up SleazeBag Cinema. It's actually all one word, and you'll find us on there. Give us your Zmed-O-Meter rating. And yeah, like I said, like we said, Revenge of the Nerds will be the next one. I just want to say, I want to thank Andrew. I want to thank Commandant Lassard, Chief Hurst, Madam Mayor, Mr. President, His Holiness the Pope, the King of Norway, and all of our other honored guests. I just wanted to thank everybody. And thank you all, the listeners, too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
The I. I'll fix it. Police Academy, the series.